across the sea of life, so much pain. Warring divides, it's a shame. We don't see how it can be. Oh, we need to smile at each other, wish for your brother, help one another, all we need.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Yfactor on 87.6 FM.
Honor our mother, shelter our sisters, all to existence, God's help will come from above.
Welcome back to the Yfactor, and starting off straight into the program for today. It has been an awesome week, but just following up on last week, apparently I have to make an apology because
No, not last week, many weeks ago. Okay,
yes,
when you
sorry.
were on your wacky rant, you said something that was very offensive and it was very crude, and I told you at the time. I didn't actually, I found out after. Nonetheless, it was very rude. Today's the 27th of October 2011. Anyway, Jamal, get to your point, brother.
Well, anyway, on our one of our shows last time I was on air, we were mentioning that dwarf tossing is coming back to Australia as one of our national sports, and I mentioned that the ones who were protesting was dwarves or midgets, and I used both words, and someone mentioned that was offensive. Now, just to clarify, I apologise if that was offensive to anybody, but just so you understand the type of person that I am, I actually don't say any of these words in a way to offend people. I actually Muhammad can probably speak for me. He probably knows me. I associate with anybody. Doesn't matter what race or religion you come from. Doesn't matter if you have a disability. Doesn't matter, even if you're an alien from outer space, I'd be open-minded and treat you just like I would my family. So I apologise if that word created offence.
That's fine, Jamal. I think, like you said, man, on a serious note, everything we say on the Yfactor, if it is offensive, we do apologise in advance. It's not that we do it intentionally. It's just, to take the piss out of things or
pretty much
be a bit lighthearted. But nonetheless, what we said last time was very crude and not right. So we apologise for that. So we're starting on a bit of a negative, aren't we, Jamal?
Going straight into the positives. Gadaffi has died, yes. And then we're going to go on to the Syria and Yemen. It's still in turmoil. What's going to happen with the future of the Middle East? Turkey has had an earthquake, a 7.2 on the Richter scale. MyPeace commercials are out this week. The Earth's population is going to hit 7 billion by the end of this week. And we're going to talk about occupied Sydney, the importance of learning a new language. Obviously, always go over my favourite segment, the wacky news.
Oh, here we go.
And we're going to have an awesome interview with the Sheikh Mustafa Majzoub about being positive.
Exactly, on the precise opposite side of the spectrum of being negative. It's all about being positive today on the Yfactor. So we'll get straight into our news items for the week.
The Yfactor.
So obviously the big, huge, massive news of the week has been Gadaffi's death.
That has been the number one topic, and I personally am celebrating. The world is better off with another dictator gone.
I don't think we should be celebrating someone's death. Nonetheless, I do feel that justice was served, and the Libyan people, we can never empathise with them enough of what they went through.
Exactly. I mean, but one heated topic for the week has actually been whether or not he should have been tried or whether it was right to assassinate him. I am strongly of the opinion that if you're a tyrant, Wallahu alam, like I'd always go with the Islamic opinion, but at the same time, if I was one of those people, I don't like. I'm not going to sleep any worse at night knowing that Gadaffi was assassinated, because if a tyrant who has oppressed and killed his people and made a lot of fitna in the land, it's time for him to go. The faster that he can be assassinated on this earth, the better, I'd say.
Well, look, just before we get into that whole debate, the facts behind it were obviously he was killed by the rebel forces, actually found in a drain, and subhanAllah, it's like out of all his glory and his wealth and that sort of stuff, it was amazing the way he died in a drain and was carried out. He was actually heavily wounded when the rebels carried him out to the public. Then one of the rebels approached him, shot him in the head, and that pretty much ended his life. And actually people were grabbing his hair to make sure he was dead and sort of pushing his dead carcass around. And some people from Tripoli, some Libyans were angered that the rebels from Misrata took the bodies of Gadaffi and his son Mu'tasim to their city, because there was a public viewing for, I think it was 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
So that is up for discussion at the moment in terms of was that the right sort of thing. But I'll bring you back on your point, Jamal, just about him not standing trial. We can say the same about Osama bin Laden, the same about Saddam Hussein. Is this a means of justice for the people, or do you think he would have been better to rot in jail for eternity?
No, because there's always. Why allow a tyrant or even someone who has committed atrocious acts towards other human beings to live another day? Just get rid of them. I'd say there were cases of serial killers. This old man nicknamed the Grey Man, who would kidnap little kids and then eat them. Would you kill him straight away or put him through a court system?
I agree. Look, I agree that in terms of the legal system right around the world, it's very lenient, and a lot of people are quick to exercise their fundamental human rights. I just think, if from now until Yom Al-Qiyamah there's going to be more and more dictators, eventually some of them have to stand trial, because I don't know, this is what I've read from my research. Some of the Libyan people have said that with Gaddafi's death, although it is symbolic and the nation is free, a lot of uncertainty has went with his death, like in terms of the many prisoners that he did oppress and put into dungeons, all the people he murdered. The stats aren't actually official. So for people, if you're a family in Libya and your husband's been murdered under Gaddafi's dictatorship and rule, yes, okay, his death as a symbolic gesture would be a great sign of relief for you, but you'll never really have complete closure, not knowing the complete, I guess,
who
exact
the actual
details.
killer was. I guess.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We need to take that.
But then again, Gaddafi would not have personally known all the personal killers who killed all these people underneath his leadership. But I still think he bears the brunt of the responsibility for such actions. I've heard tell, and it's probably true, that he actually spent a lot of money on African development and upon building homes and so forth. But at the same time, that to me that does not justify whatsoever the accompanying oppression of your own people.
I agree, and as we know, Gaddafi's body, for obvious reasons, was buried in an unknown location in the desert because people obviously.
Well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But the fact that he's gone is good news, I'd say.
Okay, so we can agree to disagree, can't we, Jamal?
So you think that he should have been trialed, and I believe that it was a good thing that he was assassinated?
I think the world should stay out of it, and the Libyan people should decide his fate. That's what I think. But I guess they did. Allahu Alam.
Same in Syria. I think the Assad should just go. His father, during his regime, there was massacres, and now underneath his son's regime, there are still massacres of their own people. Now, it's one thing to massacre, maybe a bunch of people in a foreign country who you're at war with, which is still an atrocity, but if you're doing it against your own people, then that really goes to show the sort of person you are.
That's right. Look, I guess, look, in all honesty, Gaddafi's dead. That's done and dusted. A lot of it turns now to the future stability of Libya.
That's true.
I find it a bit hypocritical of Western nations such as the US, who a year ago were meeting up with Gaddafi.
That's right.
And having tea and coffee with him and talking global politics, and now all of a sudden they're in full support of the Libyan people and crying freedom with them.
Yep.
And now, but this is, I guess, a crucial stage. What happens from here in terms of Libya? Where do they go? Does the interim government come in? Do the rebels take over?
Well, yeah, we really don't know who's leading Libya. The people in the Transnational Council were in Gaddafi's. Some of them were in Gaddafi's cabinet and so forth.
That's right.
So it's really an uncertain time period. But I read this article the other day saying that they want to input a lot more Sharia law into Libya and Islamic law into Libya. And you had France, of all people, was saying they're going to keep a close eye on this Sharia implementation so that it doesn't.
France.
And the things that they mentioned in the article was so that there's no oppression of women, which is completely against Islam anyway. So that democracy is, democratic values are still kept, which is in Islam anyway. So that divorce can still be allowed, which is in Islam anyway. And they say all these bigoted sort of things that Islam already has when it's practiced properly. That is. Equality between men and women. You have equity, I guess, same thing, which was in Islam anyway. But it was who is France to come and step in and be the judge as to the direction that Libya should take?
Well, there you have it from the Yfactor. We suggest all other countries, especially Western foreign countries, stay out of it. Let the Libyan people come up with their own future in regards to their governance and stability of the country.
Yeah, help, don't dictate.
The Yfactor.
So the latest, also touching upon the Arab Spring and what's happened after that, is the uprisings in Syria and Yemen, specifically in Syria. The quick question is, is Islam rising again in the Middle East? Is this revolution going to also see a refreshment of Islam within the people now that a lot of these military dictatorships are being overthrown, and inshallah Syria and Yemen are next as well. So, and hopefully good leaders will come in next who are actually just to the people and balanced leaders. But anyway, going back to Syria, patients are actually being tortured in some hospitals in Syria, in government hospitals, that is. And these Syrian protesters who were injured in brutal crackdowns by the Bashar al-Assad's regime and so forth. And you have reports saying that these people, once they go to hospital for treatment, are actually then being tortured. I was watching a documentary where you had some Syrian doctors actually saying, they'd killed off some patients underneath the orders of the government.
SubhanAllah, man, the Bashar regime knows no limits, it knows no mercy. That's very harsh. I think people in hospitals, they'd be treated from your aggression and your... a lot of your spies and those who work for you, and you're actually, like you were saying, paying out or forcing, doctors, whether they're, because of your menacing nature, to kill patients. That's ridiculous.
Well, it doesn't really surprise me, knowing the nature of the Assad family in Syria, the leadership over there, knowing their history. I've had some family friends who have actually come from the backgrounds where their family themselves had actually lost some family members underneath the Ba'ath Party. This is relating back to the massacre that happened in Hama alone, where you had some estimate between 20 and 60,000 people were disappeared in the course of 1 to 2 years because they were suspected of conspiring against the government. Now, these people just want fair rights. They want justice. They don't want to be oppressed. And now it seems like you can't say a word against the Syrian government, otherwise you get your throat slit.
The Yfactor.
On to some other international news now. In Turkey, there's actually been a huge earthquake. To date, 400 actually dead, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
It was actually on Sunday.
More than that even. It was a 7.2 on the Richter scale.
Allahu Akbar, that's huge. In the eastern Van province, so our thoughts and prayers and our dua are with our brothers and sisters in Turkey. And I hope a lot of the countries, the Western countries, the civilized, developed countries aren't neglecting. We are quick to jump on whenever a natural disaster breaks in any part of the world. I hope we're not, our attention isn't shifted from Libya. Yes, it is important news, but also this in Turkey is massive. And I think that the tally is increasing by the day of the tally of the death.
Yeah. Well, I think everything should be given its fair due, and the Turkish people should not be ignored. But it's a scary thing. If you think about it, Muhammad, there's actually the average number of disasters that happen each year is a number between 400, the early 400 mark.
SubhanAllah. And that's
each year, and that's just natural disasters, not counting man-made disasters.
That's a quite visible reminiscence of the Day of Judgment.
SubhanAllah.
So we're not gonna. Yeah, khair inshallah.
Going on to the next story.
The Yfactor.
Going on to the MyPeace the commercials that are being launched this week. We had an interview early on with Dear Muhammad when he first was launching the campaign just with the billboards. Now we have our own TV commercials that are going to be launched on some of Australia's primetime television shows during the primetime hours.
That's right. You think about it, this, guys. We're going to give you a sense of perspective to our listeners. 12 million non-Muslims will know about Islam if they already don't, but the real Islam, inshallah,
yep.
Some of the real values of Islam by this Friday. And that is huge. No dawah organisation, from my knowledge, many dawah organisations in our community are doing a great job, but they're targeting, the preached, or they're preaching to the preacher.
On a very small scale, you could say.
Exactly. Nothing on this scale. So, Dear Muhammad's such a brilliant man. He started with the Islamic billboards, mashallah. He did the bus advertisements, and now he's rolling out TV ads. There's going to be a prime time, Channel 7 and Channel 9. And I was actually fortunate enough to be at the press conference when he actually announced it, and there was a lot of media there, and we have some grabs about that later on.
Awesome.
So we'll have a listen to that a bit later on to see what some people had to say.
MyPeace.com.au. It's a very high quality dawah initiative that's supported by. I don't think it's not supported by any people in the community. I think everybody's behind
unanimous,
this one.
general support from everyone from across the board.
Yeah,
and
it's just
also
basic Islam, very the core values, everything.
Bit of Yfactor exclusive as well. Someone's hand actually features in the commercial.
Yes, yeah.
Some gossip I heard. So.
Yeah, check out the commercial, and you can come and get my autograph at a later stage.
It's just your hand, right? Not your actual face, so people can't identify.
No, they can't. But so it's a very lovely hand, mashallah. That's helping up the poor guy.
I think the forearm was a good length, good sense of muscle mass on the forearm as well, mashallah.
The Yfactor.
That's the end of the international news. On to some local news now.
Yes.
Occupy Sydney.
Yes, the amazing man of awesomeness is in the studio to get my autograph.
I believe he's here because he's our everything correspondent from community gossip to global politics. Mustafa Majzoub, welcome to the Yfactor.
Assalamu alaikum.
I'd actually prefer if I'd be the political correspondent.
Look, you're going to be our everything correspondent from now on, okay? That's your title. Anyway, Occupy Sydney. What's it all about?
Man of awesomeness, I think, is the
man of awesomeness.
Political correspondent, that's it.
Okay.
No more discussion on topic.
What's Occupy Sydney?
Occupy Sydney. All right, it's a very interesting topic. It's actually started in America with Occupy Wall Street, where some protesters decided they wanted to protest the fact that 1% of the population controlled the majority of the wealth and 99% controlled the least amount. And the protest focuses on corporate greed, trying to let the powers that be know that 99% is not going to remain silent. But I'm going to be completely honest with you and with my listeners. I don't believe that it has any point. I think it's pointless. I think that it's not going to achieve anything, and that it's a waste of time.
Do you think the protesters have nebulous reasons, like vague reasons? Because I heard, I don't know, clarify this if this was a rumour, that they're trying to mimic the Arab Spring that took place in the Middle East, which is a completely different context. That's true.
They did put up on their websites. If you ever go and check out their websites, go on to occupysydney.com or whatever. They do have the Arab Spring as part of their inspiration, which to me is like it's something that is really quite stupid, because the situation over there is completely different to the situation in America. Yeah. I mean, the situation over there, as Jamal pointed out earlier, is that you can't even speak your mind in Syria and places like that
without getting your throat cut.
Exactly. In America, you can say what you want, do what you want. Even in Australia, in most Western countries, you can basically do whatever you want. You have the backing of the government, you have social reforms, you have all these different things, democracy, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to do what you want. These people are basically, to be honest with you, and to be blunt, they're complaining.
Just big whingers, you're saying?
Yeah, they're whingers. And I'm sorry if I offend people out there, but that's the truth, man.
How about the cops? We heard the cops might have overstepped their mark when they went in to remove them, because there was Occupy Sydney, Occupy Melbourne. The CBDs of these two cities had people living there for up to 4 days, I heard.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I actually went down there and I got to see them. Mm-hmm. They had sleeping bags, had a guy smoking whatever, and they had...
Says what types of protesters they were.
Bit of the wacky tobacco.
Yeah, exactly. And they had, guitar players. They literally did nothing. But they were removed. There were police. There was a police presence down there, a pretty strong one as well. They were quite aggressive. And they were removed. They were removed on a Friday morning, I do believe, or Saturday morning. And there was some violent clashes. But if we compare it to the violent clashes in the United States, it wasn't. Or
even in the Middle East with their government.
If you want to go all the way, you go compare it to the Middle East, it's absolutely nothing. I mean, a bit of push and shove.
I guess we're not downplaying the actual seriousness of the issue that they're protesting.
Of course.
I mean, we did mention that there were whingers before, but at the same time, the disparity between the rich and the poor.
So true.
All over the world, really. It's probably more distinct in foreign countries where the poverty there kills people, while poverty here is really like a wealthy person in some third world countries.
Just like where they say that 20% of the world wealth is controlled by the 80%. Sorry, I got to actually say that again. 80% of the world's wealth is controlled by 20% of the population, right? So we're part of that 20%. So you might say that you're 1% of or 99% of the, you control only a little bit of the wealth, but to be honest with you, you're still part of that 20% of the world population that controls so much wealth. So you're better off. But that doesn't change the fact that the economic system that we currently have in place is a broken system. It doesn't change the fact that we have a system that does depend on that 1% and does push them upwards. But nonetheless, it might be a great initiative. It might be something that a lot of people would be supportive. But unfortunately, due to the financial crisis, the debts, the government systems we currently have in place, no matter how much you protest, you aren't going to change anything.
There you have it from our everything correspondent, Mustafa Ashwani. Now on to some other news about language. Now, Asian languages are actually in decline in this country. Japanese, Mandarin and Korean were three of the most popular languages taught in our public schools, in the public school system, but they're actually on decline. A professor from Queensland University of Technology actually said there's a sense of arrogance from the government when migrants come here to learn English and not learn anything else. I think as a Muslim, we need to learn Arabic. My Arabic's very poor.
Or even to learn another language. I mean, if you each language you learn makes you another person almost, because you can travel somewhere in the world and then use that language.
A new sense of culture, perspective, a global outlook.
It grows you, it strengthens you in a lot of ways, and it also increases your brain mass. All right, moving on to the next thing. Earth's population is to reach 7 billion by the end of this week. Did you know that if you have a food in your fridge, clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and a place to sleep, you are richer than 75% of the world? Richer than 75% of 7 billion people.
That's amazing. Also, some interesting research study has found that Australians are not as hospitable as we thought. As compared with the Americans, Australians are less than likely to invite their friends and neighbours home for a meal or to meet the family. This research has revealed. So all the Australians out there who think throwing a shrimp on the barbie and inviting people is part of Aussie culture, it seems to be on the decline, but I don't think it will decline in terms of the Muslim community, because you can always come over for a barbecue. You coming over this week, Jamal?
Inshallah, if you invite me. But maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't.
You're not meant to say that.
Maybe they didn't take into account the amount of people who are now playing Xbox Live. So they're still socialising. They're just not at each other's houses. They're playing Halo or Call of Duty or some other game that I should be getting royalties for plugging.
Video games will never compensate for personal interactions. How dare you? That's a whole other debate. Do you want to debate?
Thumbs down by Mr. Ashwani, right?
Alright guys, I'm about to take off. I'm a bit depressed because Jamal's going to mention his wacky news right now.
Going on to the best segment of the show, the wacky news, starting off with the funniest bit I found. A woman bit off her lover's happy sacks in a drunken brawl and she's facing jail for that one.
Which country was this in?
It was, I don't know, I didn't read the whole article. I think it was the United States.
Why am I not surprised? I've said that for the past 10 weeks.
Do you want me to find out for you?
No, don't go any further into that. That says enough.
Alright. In Japan, some radioactive cars have been sold. I think that's like a aftermath of the what do you call it? The stuff that happened earlier on in the year, the tsunami that affected the nuclear plants. Also, what has happened is a 100-year-old man in India is running the marathon, and he plans to complete it. You had,
mashallah, if I keep running by that age, it's a really good sign. I'd highly doubt.
In Dallas, in America, you had a woman attacked with she attacked a man with a frozen armadillo. Another man found in the United States a 2.4 meter Lego man wash ashore with the slogan across his chest, no real than you are, which I thought was hilarious.
I wonder what they were smoking.
Anyway,
well, here's some wacky news. The biggest US nuclear bomb, right, has been dismantled in Texas. Now, this nuclear bomb is 600 times more powerful than the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, where 140,000 people were wiped out and children were born with defects for decades.
Now, times that by 600, and it was made by some very eager Americans. I'm not surprised. On top of that, you had, say, some ET, like extraterrestrials, were spotted in South America in the Amazon, or at least from a photograph, that's what they thought. And the funniest thing was a comment by someone saying, "Stay out of Australia, please, ET. We can't afford more refugees. Just think about the standard rates to phone home."
Jamal, go home.
Wait, before we finish, right? You had a shopkeeper shot in the United States in LA for not having the products that the shopper wanted.
Talk about a customer complaint.
Exactly. You had this truck driver also. I think it was in the United States. He was swarmed by 25 million bees. Him and his wife. And the funniest thing was, right, because he actually was transporting the beehives and he crashed the truck. All the bees were pissed as hell. Chased after him and his wife, and he got stung and hurt and all this other stuff.
Sounds like something out of a movie.
And the funny thing was, he was asked, if you're going to be trucking any more bees again anytime soon, and he goes, And he paused for a second. He goes, well, my wife's looking at me right now, so I'll say no. I found that hilarious. Anyway, that's the end of the wacky news for this week.
Alhamdulillah.
Just don't appreciate me,
I
Mohammed.
do appreciate it, but I don't think the lures... You know what? Let's ask the listeners if they really want to hear wacky news.
Post on Facebook, brothers and sisters.
If you're in support of Jamal's wacky...
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I know Mr. Ashwani's in support of it. I can see that.
That's right.
For our listeners who can't. But post your comments on Facebook so we can find out.
The Yfactor.
Thank God that segment's over.
No, Mohammed, there's another guy with a 45-kilogram happy
Jamal,
sack.
stop. Oh, call security, stop. Okay.
All right, okay.
On a serious note, guys, for all our HSC listeners out there, wallahi, we wish you all the best, because me and Jamal were in your shoes many years ago, and we know the stress and anxiety that can come with your HSC exams. We know you're midway through your exams. I think English is over.
Yep.
The first English papers.
My hair still hasn't grown back since the HSC.
Don't tell them that. We tell them that after the HSC period.
I think I need to go to Ashley and Martin's.
No, but in all honesty, wallahi, make a lot of dua. Sleep early and wake up early. I found the most productive time to study was in the morning, right after Fajr, because your memory retention is very high. No distractions. No one's on Facebook at 6 a.m. in the morning unless you're Jamal or Mustafa Ashwani.
Definitely do past papers.
Yeah, a lot of past papers as well.
If you're studying, if you're leaving things to the last minute like I did, study the past papers. They will give you because they repeat a lot of the answers, a lot of the questions that they do in previous years.
That's right, and memorize like crazy. Memorize. Get back in the exam, regurgitate, vomit it all out.
Yep.
By the way,
Google
you can also take
stuff.
food in the exam. So I took jelly beans. My friend brought a kebab machine. Bring whatever you want in the exam,
and write answers on the wrapping sheet for the sandwiches and stuff.
So you don't want to get caught. But and be friends with those ladies, those little old ladies and men that work as a HSC, like people who monitor.
Yeah. Suck up to them. They might give you some free answers.
Honestly, they're really cool. I was late. Like I went over time for one of my exams, but she's like, "I'll continue on, darling." I'm like, "Thank you." And I just kept writing.
It's okay.
So just do that baby face in in Puss in Boots in Shrek. That very cute face with the soft music in the background. Get your friend to press play and just do that, and I'll give you a few extra minutes. Any other sound advice, Jamal?
No citing adult material in the end.
We wish you all the best for your HSC, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with wealth, knowledge, memorization, regurgitation, and jelly beans.
And jelly beans, what the hell?
They're a good source of glucose. Like, you get a sugar hit. Like, midway through your exam, if you're falling
If you have
asleep.
diabetes.
Yeah, true. But if you're falling asleep in your exam, hit up a jelly bean and just awake. It's like drugs. It's really cool. Have you tried drugs? No, you haven't. I can tell.
No citing drugs on the radio show, Mohammed.
I think I'm a bit high, Jamal. Do you want to take over? Maybe we should let Rashwani take it to a break. Actually, what are we doing after the break?
We are having an awesome interview with Mr. Sheikh Mustafa Majzoub
About being positive and being responsible. So for our HSC listeners out there, it will be worthwhile, worth listening to the episode right after the break. But Mr. Ashwani, since you're here, you can take us to the break. Just give a shout out as usual. We do with all our listeners. You listen to the Yfactor on 87.6 FM, the best show in the country. We all know that, but just reiterate it for them.
In the country, are you sure?
Yeah.
And how lovely you think we are.
Take it away, Mr. Ashwani.
This is Mustafa Ashwani, political correspondent for the Yfactor, and you're listening to the Yfactor on 87.6 FM.
Mountains of Mecca, what can you say of the day that Abraham passed your way?
This is Omar Regan, and you're listening to Yfactor. Assalamu alaikum. No, this is Omar Regan, and you're listening to the Yfactor. Much love to my Aussies.
Welcome back to the Yfactor, guys. We have a very, very, very interesting segment, don't we, Jamal?
We certainly do. We have Sheikh Mustafa Majzoub on the show today, and inshallah you're going to love this topic.
That's right. He's the founder of IslamConvey.com, and he's going to talk about a topic that we don't hear about, well, not as often as we should in the community.
It's very much hush-hush in the community, sort of a taboo topic, but it's very relevant in today's world, especially in the living in Australia, where you have a lot of youth, some who are actually taking their lives because they're not staying positive.
That's right. At the Yfactor, we take things out of the closet, staying positive. That's the topic for today. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and welcome to the program.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Firstly, why be positive?
Good question. Because if you're not going to be positive, you're simply going to allow yourself to die before you die.
That's good, right?
That's it. I'm leaving now. I'm done.
That's your token of wisdom for today. But I guess, studies.
Okay.
Not yet, Sheikh. Stay with us. The listeners love you.
We want to get a little bit more wisdom out of you, inshallah. But I guess studies have sort of shown that people who aren't positive, which often leads to depression and negative moods and so forth, they not only affect themselves, medically as well. It sort of affects their health. They also affect their social life. People around them really dislike being around them. So I guess as a Muslim, we all have a responsibility to stay positive, to be positive. What's something that you can teach us about, especially with the trouble that the youth have today?
What I can tell you is that being a Muslim is about being positive to the utmost. I'm not saying here to be hyped based on that which is, that's going to be cut out for sure. So being a practicing Muslim, it means to be positive. If you were to look at Islam in its different aspects, you find it's all about empowering the individual to give him direction in life and to set him in a direction where he knows that no matter what happens, he's still got hope and that he's got a chance until he has his last breath. Therefore, since our breaths are numbered, we've got to make sure that they are spent in the right way. And every breath is taken in a way that only makes us grow and come closer to our Lord, and to be people who contribute in a society, who spread a message that truly everyone needs to know the reality of it, because truly it comes with solutions in all aspects, and specifically here, we're talking about being positive.
That's right, because you have a lot of youth, especially people in the community, who feel like they can't contribute anything, they feel worthless, they feel like they can't achieve, when that's completely wrong. Isn't that true? Anyone can achieve what they want to achieve.
Definitely,
right?
It's the case. Every individual whom Allah Azza wa Jal has gifted with an intellect is an individual who has the role of contributing. I'm not going to say that he can contribute, but I'm going to say he has a role of contributing, and every individual has that role depending on where they are positioned. But one thing for sure, we have this role with ourselves before anyone else.
So before we head into, let's say, a community responsibility, and you can talk a bit about that in terms of the role of brothers motivating brothers to seek brotherhood and vice versa of the sisters, you need to start with yourself as an individual.
Definitely.
Be positive, inshallah, and then what do we do from there? What's the role of motivating each other?
Definitely, Allah Azza wa Jal had created us in such a way that we get affected by one another. When you say a good word, it affects you before me. You're the one who feels the fruits of what you're saying and feels the encouragement of it if it's something good. And if you're saying something negative and something that's disempowering, you're going to find yourself before anyone else defeated. And from here, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said some beautiful words when he said, "Man qala halaka an-nas fahuwa ahlakuhum." And another narration, he said, "Fahuwa ahlakahum." What it means, whoever says that people are destroyed, then he is the most destroyed among all people. And then in another narration, he said something else, and that is, you're the one who destroyed them, indicating that the word that you say and how you say it has such an impact in destroying yourself and others around you.
Sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you could say.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
if you, I think, wasn't there another hadith saying that if you say something often enough, then eventually it'll become it'll become a reality?
People will believe it.
Look, I'll agree with that in terms of it being a thought.
Okay.
In terms of a hadith, I myself need to do my checking on that. But definitely that's something positive to accept.
In terms of, I guess you touched on a little bit about giving messages off to other people. Is that in terms of and you coined it as the Islamic angle? We have the Australian angle. What's the Islamic angle of passing on, let's say, bad news, especially for our community leaders amongst the youth?
Beautiful. Well, look, one thing I've got to tell you is that as a Muslim, you have an identity that it's not limited to the place that you live in, but it's an international identity. And this is something that Allah Azza wa Jal has created us in such a way that we get affected by what we hear about our brothers worldwide, even about humans who suffer and go through adversities. But the point is that the Islamic angle is that to always look at things in a way that will cause benefit, that will cause an improvement and a step ahead. Definitely to think of it at that time or take it from the negative aspect, it's not going to cause any change. And look, at the end of the day, as one of them said, sitting in that or being of those who are negative and being that person who wants to be depressed is no different than sitting in a rocking chair. And yes, you got something to do, but the reality is you're not going to get anywhere.
SubhanAllah.
That reminds me of one of the stories of the companions when they went out, they set out on a task to, I think, fight against a small band of people, and they ended up having to face off against a number, several times their own, and they stopped along the way at a camp, and they started having a debate with each other as to whether or not they should go along, because if they continued on, it would be suicide.
Definitely.
And then you had one of the companions, you know the one that I'm referring to?
Yeah, Abdullah ibn Rawaha.
And what did he say, if you could tell us?
That which you flee from is that which we are looking for.
SubhanAllah. Which is basically, I guess that
mentality, it's the heart.
The positive they saw from it was where it's an opportunity to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Exactly.
I guess.
And tell me with such mentality, how could defeat come to that person? Tell me, if a person thinks always in such a way that, Allah Azza wa Jal is always giving the believer direction and always giving the believer opportunities to grow, tell me, where can he find defeat in his heart? I'll tell you one thing, with such mentality, imagine you were to think like that in any area of life, you'll find yourself always a winner. Whether you're studying, or whether you're working, or whether you happen to be married and, you're suffering. I'll tell you one thing, always look at the bright side.
Yeah.
Don't allow defeat to come in, because seriously,
That's right.
It's just going to cause that relationship or whatever you're doing to, you're going to cause it to die before it stays. If not, at least to weaken it.
So you should always look for the positive in your partner as well.
Exactly.
SubhanAllah, Sheikh, I've always been fascinated with the concept of tawakkul in Islam, like placing your complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and leaving the rest, that's by God's will. So, and it amazes me how, even though I go to university in Jamaleh, we know that although we put our heart and soul into it, without Allah's will, nothing will happen. So good, bad or ugly, whatever the result is, alhamdulillah, that's our response. Is this, subhanAllah, it's like an incentive to be positive, like
Definitely.
It's something we have on top of something non-Muslims will never have.
Definitely.
It's amazing.
Well, this is something that, we thank Allah Azza wa Jal for it,
Yeah.
is that He gave us the way to have true power, and that is to put your trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. Let me share with you a bit of an example. I said a bit, but really it is a great example, to be positive about it. And subhanAllah, we are witnessing it right now, today, in these days. Ibrahim alayhi salam, after he finished the building of the Kaaba, he was commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal to do the adhan. And his response was, to who am I calling to? To who am I calling? And Allah Azza wa Jal tells him, you call and we deliver. Teaching us to put tawakkul ala Allah. You do your side. Don't be someone who concentrates on the results. You concentrate on your side and what you have to do, and then leave the rest to Allah Azza wa Jal. And look at us today. We have billions and billions throughout time until this day who are responding to the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And what that teaches us is that when there is a word of truth, when there is that positive look to things, Allah Azza wa Jal will allow it to echo 1,000 times, to go in and to cause an effect that goes beyond what you can ever imagine. And let me just share with you one example. I say to myself, subhanAllah, today I was talking about this with some students, and we were talking about how some great scholars that we repeat their names today, did these people ever think that they will become a nation later on? What I mean by that, hear about them being tortured, they were killed, they were exiled, but yet they didn't stop working, and they kept on doing their duty. They were positive. And subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal, because of their firmness and because of their truthfulness, He allows their message to reach us today in such a way that a living person can't even compete with them. And this goes to the mentality, the positiveness, working and doing. And one thing that I want to share, and forgive me, I really get passionate about talking about this stuff. Subhanallah, Allah Azza wa Jal, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, if the hour occurs while there is in the hand of one of you a small plant, let him plant it. You might ask the question, what's the reason behind that? I'll tell you, because your duty is to work until the last second.
Subhanallah.
And for you is to do, and upon Allah Azza wa Jal is the results.
I think there was another similar hadith. I can't remember the exact quotation, but it's along the lines of like you should work as if you're going to live forever, but live as if you're going to die today.
Yeah, it's a statement that they say it's attributed to Umar ibn Khattab.
Okay.
Look, it can be taken in a good way, a good meaning, and it can be taken in a negative way. But definitely the good meaning is that you work knowing that, work in such a way that you believe that you would last forever. Meaning that work and strengthen what you're doing.
Yep.
And do not be of those who do a weak act or something that's free from that sureness that it could work. So you can take a good message out of it.
Just following on from your reference about the plan and when the hour comes, subhanAllah, a few weeks ago we were talking about Somalia, and some of the brothers who have been there have come back and said the sisters there, subhanallah, they still wear their niqab and their jilbab, even though their children are dying. They're walking thousands of kilometers to find food and nutrition for their families, but none of them, they keep striving. They don't
blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Exactly. You think, especially in Australia, the brother was saying, any sister would any excuse to sort of remove herself from her deen, she would, if she's in a calamity. They're facing a massive calamity, and yet their tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that subhanallah, it's inspiring. I felt amazed.
Yeah, subhanallah. Look, this goes back to also how we look at it. I mean, look at it in a positive way, that those people are not trialed in their deen and tested in their deen. See, our sisters here, may Allah Azza wa Jal gift them with strength. They do have this test that is on a different level, and that is the test of the temptations, the test of the environment that they're surrounded by. So definitely it's a different test, but let's look at it in a positive way, that subhanallah, how such people in Somalia can remain firm and have still trust and faith in Allah Azza wa Jal despite all things, and that's a sign for us to reflect from.
And I guess in Islam, like a lot of teachings really promote seeing the positive outlook, such as, say, if you were to lose a child, then inshallah, if you're patient, then you'll be rewarded with Jannah, and you'll see that child in Jannah and things like that. So
definitely, look, there's something interesting about our deen, and this is something I would really like our listeners to understand, and that is, there's not a belief that Islam teaches except that it's there to empower you. All beliefs that Islam comes with is to purify your heart and your mind from all that which is impure, and also to give you the strength to be someone who can continue a journey that its end is with Allah Azza wa Jal. Take for example, when we talk about the beautiful names and attributes of Allah that are repeated in the Quran so many times, what's the importance of hearing it at the end of every ayah a lot of the times? It's because through these names and attributes you learn that you should never ever despair and never be that person who gives up, because you have a Lord who is the most powerful, who is the greatest, who has all that which is there, all the names and attributes that you should never feel weak by it. And this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, if one of them was to look down to his feet, he will see us when they were in the cave. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replies, Ma dhannuka bithnain, Allahu thalithuhuma. What would you say about two? Allah is their third. This because he's the third with his knowledge and with his help and with his aid. But the point is, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who is the greatest of people, really understood Tawheed, and he was teaching us through Tawheed here how it should empower you and not make you feel weak or defeated.
I guess the sincerity and the conviction as well of the companions versus a lot of people today who struggle to have that sincerity and conviction when they ask of Allah is a big difference as well. So say, like we all believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but maybe that yaqeen, that conviction that when you ask of Allah He will aid you is lacking. So I guess it people may they may be in a bind, they may be very, in a very troubled state, and when they ask of Allah, they don't really get that nourishment, that they don't have that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that everything's going to be okay a lot of the time.
I think because a lot of the times people allow the moment to take them.
Yeah.
They are overtaken by the moment. But think of it like this. Every one of us now, while we're listening, and actually while you're listening, I'm talking. Every one of us, if we were to practice one thing now, and really do it sincerely, we'll find that, subhanAllah, it causes an immediate reaction, immediate change. If you were just to think how much Allah Azza wa Jal was there with you, helping you, and just think of the many, many, many times throughout your life,
the tiny details,
and pondering, you come to realize that Allah Azza wa Jal has never let you go, never. And it's you who has become careless at times to your Lord, and as a punishment, He causes you to feel like that, so that you can return to Him. But the reality is, He's always been with us. He's always been responding to our dua. And if He's not responding to it, look at the bright side. He's promised you that He will give you, Rasulullah has promised that Allah, He will give you something even better if He doesn't reply to your dua, or push away a harm, or He will leave it until the Day of Judgment. So tell me, with such a mentality, how could a person feel defeated? I like something that, subhanAllah, I like one of the beautiful examples from the prophets. And I recall this was the Prophet Hud. When he was someone who turned to Allah Azza wa Jal, and he put his trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, and he made his dua, it didn't matter anymore how many enemies he had. It didn't matter anymore where he was. He told his enemies who are in dislike for him and they want to hurt him, he tells them bluntly and straight out, فَكِيدُونِي جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ لَا تُنظِرُونَ. Plot against me, all of you, and don't give me any time. إِنِّي تَوَكَّلْتُ عَلَى اللَّهِ رَبِّي وَرَبُّكُمْ. I have put my trust in my Lord and your Lord. At the end of the day, you cannot hurt me. You cannot do nothing. You cannot even affect me with nothing if it wasn't for my Lord allowing it. And just take into consideration that my Lord will not allow it except to increase me in status. And as one of them said, when you find yourself going down and down because of the pressure that you are faced with, and because of the many who just don't want to bring you up. We have people like that. You always got people who just want to destroy, and they don't want to see a flourishing nation. They don't like seeing it at times. Unfortunately. But I'll tell you one thing. I like what was said. He said, when they push you down, remember the best place to go is all the way down in prostration to Allah Azza wa Jal. Ask Him and come back up, because they won't bring you down.
Touching upon that topic, Wallahi Sheikh, one of the saddest things I see in the community today is you see a lot more frowns than smiles, especially, I guess, amongst those who should be the ones smiling the most. So I'm talking about maybe the older generation, sometimes the leaders in the community, who should have a very positive outlook and make other people feel positive and smiley and so forth. What is a message that maybe you could give to leaders in the community and people who don't smile, they frown all the time?
I'd like to say to them that, firstly, the role of leadership. And look, every one of us could be in that role. If you're in your family, you have that role.
Yeah.
If you're a boss at work, you got that role.
Yeah.
If you are someone who's got that personality between mates and friends, you could have that role of leadership.
Like my role with Jamaleh, you mean?
I can see that, yeah. Is that true? Anyway, going back to it, at the end of the day, leadership is not about controlling the limbs, but it's about leading hearts to grow.
Yeah.
It's about causing minds to overcome obstacles, to see hope in the midst of darkness, to be that person who's just simply inspired. That is what a leader is. A leader is someone who can give that positive impression and look and be a source for the power for others around him. And I'll tell you one thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best of leaders, and I'll say this bluntly and openly, and I don't feel shy about this, and I don't say this with a hype, but I say it with believe in it. Why? Because he was a man who did not lead bodies but led hearts and mind to be the best of people, even in the midst of hardships. And this is what makes him so special until this day. And we say, Alhamdulillah, that we have such a role model that we can follow and we can take him as an example.
I think we just that little point, we need to do a whole other segment on leadership. We'll bring the Sheikh back, inshallah. Sheikh, just to wrap up, what's so unique about Islam and being positive?
I guess
sum it all up.
Because we see a lot of like self-help books these days, and all this widespread depression, which is so prevalent in developed countries.
Yeah.
You know, where even amongst celebrities who have a lot of wealth or wealthy people, who, they're committing suicide or on drugs, things like that, just to escape a lot of the emptiness that they feel in this world. What makes Islam unique? With the topic of being and staying positive, what makes Islam unique? How is it different? How can it be a solution versus, all the other self-help things or out there?
I believe what makes Islam unique and makes it stand out is that it combines between the important aspects of life and doesn't concentrate on one side and neglect others.
Yeah.
Look, you can be positive as much as you want, but I'll tell you one thing: if it's not based on something real, and then you're shaken by the moment, then I'll tell you nothing will stand at that moment. And this is where I say to you that this is where Allah Azza wa Jal said in His glorious book, وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. And say the truth has come and falsehood has been destroyed. Why? Because and I like this statement that I heard once. He said that there is not enough darkness in the world to extinguish the light of Islam, which is the absolute truth. What I mean by that is that it comes with real meanings that last with you at all moments, whether you're in power or weakness, whether you're in that state of poverty or richness, whether you're in that state where you're alone or in between people, you find it gives you real meanings at all moments and at all times. And that's what's special about it. Now I want to say one thing. Wallahi, if we as Muslims truly understand our religion correctly and apply it correctly, I say this confidently, that people around us will have no choice but to learn about this religion. Why? Because they can see in it solutions, they can see in it answers, they can see in it positiveness, they can see in it contribution. Unlike today where we find people who simply, I don't know how they expect Islam to spread because of the way they hold themselves. One thing I'll tell you, it's all about how you carry yourself. At the end of the day, you can say, I'm the most successful and I'm the best and I'm all that. But the way you carry yourself is just someone who is defeated by the looks. Doesn't matter what you tell me. And I'll tell you, on the other hand, you could be someone who he might be someone who doesn't speak much. But just by looking at you, I can tell that you are a person who is an inspiration, who is a leader, who can contribute and give. And this is how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was, and this is how our leaders should be, and this is how our brothers should be, and this is how our sisters should be, this is how Muslims should be collectively.
I wish we could stay here for longer, Sheikh, but time's running out. Thank you, Jazakallah khairan, for that healthy dose of positiveness. For further information, we're going to post your actual Facebook page. He's a very cool Sheikh. He's got a Facebook page.
Very hip, he's there.
Mashallah. Well, look, I have it to stay positive. I communicate positive messages.
Be positive. That's the message. Take home message, guys. We'll definitely post your link on the Facebook page. Once again, Jazakallah khairan for coming, and we appreciate your time.
It was a great pleasure.
Jazakumullah khair.
That was a fascinating interview with Sheikh Mustafa Majzoub about being positive and about how Islam empowers us to be positive and place our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now onto the other grabs that I promised you guys. I was privileged to be at the MyPeace press conference, which was held on Sunday, last Sunday, at the Hilton Hotel in the city. Very poshy, very sleek, very sophisticated. There were some journalists there. I managed to grab a grab from Dia Muhammad, the actual founder of MyPeace. An ABC journalist was there just to see her impression of what she thought of the ad. And also, I think her name was Felicity from Mango, which was a PR company in charge of the MyPeace ads. And they've also dealt with some major corporations, including Volkswagen and McDonald's. So they're very, very credible. So here are the grabs. Enjoy. So it's Mohammed here at the MyPeace launch. With me, I have the MyPeace founder, Dia Muhammad. Dia, how do you think today went?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, went very well. Very positive. So we'll see what the response is when the TVC goes out, inshallah.
And this is going to be huge. I mean, Wednesday, all the TV ads are going to be rolled out, on a huge scale. What do you think the feedback's going to be from the common Australian on the street?
Wednesday, inshallah, goes national on Prime, which is a regional channel, and a few days after on the major networks. But it'll be good. I think, inshallah, there's nothing controversial about it. It's about good Islamic values. So I think the Australians will share it and be positive towards it, I think.
Inshallah, a lot of the media here have complimented the way that your PR team has packaged, the production of the commercials themselves, nothing too controversial, like you said, playing on common values. Do you think you're going to be bombarded once this commercial are rolled out by requests for copies of the Quran or copies of literature?
Inshallah, that's the whole idea of it. That's why we're doing it, so people can learn more about Islam. They can read the Quran, they can visit the website to get the basic knowledge about Islam and what Islam is. Hopefully that's what the response will be, inshallah.
Inshallah, and can you just give a quick shout out to the Yfactor radio program, one of the best, obviously the best Muslim radio programs in the country. So,
without a doubt, the Yfactor is definitely the best thing happening right now, and I think the likes of Alan Jones and Ray Hadley are sort of keeping a close eye on you guys. So.
Thanks a lot, dear. Appreciate it.
The Yfactor.
Moment again from the Yfactor. With me, I have Felicity from Mango, which is the PR company taking care of the MyPeace campaign. Felicity, how do you think today went?
Hello. I think it went really well this morning. Obviously, it's a highly topical thing that was being launched this morning, and it's great, I guess, just to see the reactions of non-Muslims such as myself and I guess the broader media who are here today.
From a PR perspective, was this a challenge in the sense that I've heard you've dealt with Volkswagen before, these huge companies, McDonald's. Is this something new? Is it unprecedented for you guys in terms of a challenge in itself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously every client has its challenges, and that's where it's really important to sort of, I guess, have a strategic planning session before you launch into something, to identify what the key objectives are as well as any red flags that you may be up against. Obviously, this was something completely out of the box for us, highly interesting, and something that obviously you just approach with slight caution because obviously MyPeace want to get the message out there, but the old adage that not all press is good press is still true. And I think obviously identifying what the key strengths of this campaign were and why it will resonate with non-Muslims was really important and the way forward for it. And it seems so far that that's been a successful approach.
Fantastic. And in your strategic planning, are you guys anticipating a positive, general reaction from non-Muslims across the board, or obviously there is some, I'd assume, some anticipation of a backlash of some sort or linking it to some sort of controversy?
Yeah, look, the media love to find the negative aspect of anything. But as Dia said in his address this morning, this is something that isn't controversial. It puts into perspective the role that the Islamic culture can play in an Australian society and how the value systems of, say, the dominant Australian religion, which is Christianity, how that runs parallel with many of the Muslim beliefs. And I think just to be able to put things into perspective and showcase things running alongside each other really, I guess, helps appease any of that maybe, negative backlash that people are sort of wanting to associate with it.
And if you don't know, this is a youth radio program, and we're in desperate need of a fantastic PR program. So a free session sounds fantastic from Mango. We're very appreciative, Felicity. We appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
The Yfactor.
It's Mohammed here from the Yfactor. We're at the MyPeace launch in the city this Sunday, the 23rd of October 2011. With us we have a journalist from ABC TV. What do you think of the launch?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was quite well put together. From a media perspective, it's always useful if there's, so the advertisement that you're running, the commercial that will be on TV, that there's a version of that available for us to use. So it's a high resolution advertisement that's available on DVD. That makes it a lot easier for us to be able to take that back to our offices and use that in the story so that we can edit that together. There was also a lot of communication from the PR people that we were speaking to that have been engaged by MyPeace on their behalf, so that made it a lot easier from our perspective, sort of come, know where we were going and also to have all of that information available.
Fantastic. And do you think from your experience this is, I guess, the first of its kind in terms of the Muslim community coming out and on a massive scale, a national scale advertising?
I haven't seen anything like this before, so from my point of view I would say that yes, this is something that's unique in terms of this sort of information campaign. I haven't seen anything like it so far.
Fantastic. What do you anticipate to be the response from the common Australian on the street? Do you think it'll be receptive? Will there be a bit of criticism as always? What do you think?
I think that the way the advertisement has been put together, it's perhaps less confrontational than the billboards that were put out, and so I think that means that for someone who's sitting at home watching it on TV, it'll be easier for them to start to watch the advertisement and look at it and go, oh, okay, this is, I didn't realise that, this is what the advertisement was about, and might be perhaps less confrontational for them and easier for them to watch and be more perhaps receptive to the message.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you very much for that.
All right.
Thank you once again for an episode on the Yfactor. As the drive home message is, stay positive. As the Sheikh was saying, we hope you enjoyed all our news segments. Jump on our Facebook page and continue the news. We love how active the Facebook page is going. Thank you once again for listening to the Yfactor this week on 87.6 FM. As always, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم صل على محمد رسول الله